Welcome back. This is Around the Crown. We're talking all things Sacramento Kings and beyond, Calvin. Join the Royal family by hitting that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, you might as well smash up that like button. Calvin, I got to say it again here. Kings win tonight, 112-101 over the KD-less Brooklyn Nets. As Lane says, playoffs, here we come.
That's when I want the button next to me. Playoffs? Talking about playoffs?
And then I got my brr. But we didn't even go over your keys to the game, but I'm just going to state them real quick. Calvin's key to the Nets game was score more points than the Nets.
So that was actually your key to the game. I had no keys. I said,
I'll take credit for it.
They're playing one of the best teams in the league. They suck right now. Yeah. They need to do everything better. And you said score more points would be a good key.
Maybe I should start writing the keys because we're 1-0 when I'm writing the keys to the game.
Maybe.
Just saying.
Maybe.
I mean, that could be my key to every game. And that's exactly what they did tonight. All right, Calvin. So in today's news, Haliburton and Mitchell have both been named to the Rising Stars game, tournament, bracket, field, whatever it is now. I think it's a 3-game elimination. But they're there. So what does that mean for Sacramento?
Well, for Sacramento, that means they have two, up-and-coming players. But unfortunately, that doesn't mean much in the NBA. I mean, it's good to have, don't get me wrong, but as you can tell from every other podcast that we've done this season, it takes more than that.
So I want to give you a quote from my mom. This is probably 10 years old. She said, I don't care if you miss. This is in reference to shooting for the moon, blah, blah, blah. I don't care if you miss, but I at least want to hear the gun go off. And that's kind of how I feel about this, right? Is like they've made it to the Rising Stars game. Are they Rising Stars? I would say Haliburton is yes. Davion, I like what I've seen so far, but I'm not going to make any rash decisions already. But I'm hearing the gun go off, and they're launching in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, it's like you have to see the big picture. Those two and De'Aaron Fox all play the same position.
Yep.
So it's great to have rising stars on your team, but if they all play the same position, your team's probably not going to do very well. I mean, am I right? You said you were asking tough questions tonight.
Oh, I'm asking tough questions.
For the tough answers. I'm going to say things that you don't want me to say.
Lane's about to fire me up here. But, yeah, Bogey was Rising Star MVP. I get it. And he's playing great for the Atlanta Hawks. And every Kings fan wishes that they would have gave up Buddy and kept Bogey at this point. So,
but that's the thing is, like, how much better do you really think the team would be if they kept Bogey and traded Buddy? Everything else is the same.
So James Ham today.
Do they have 21 wins instead of 19?
James Ham today said if the Kings kept Vlade Divac as the GM, Bogey would still be on the team and they'd be in the playoffs this season.
See, I disagree with that. And I fell into the trap over the past couple seasons of thinking this team is making the right strides. They're getting better. They could be or they should be a playoff team. But as it stands today, they're not good enough. The collection of players is just not good enough. That doesn't mean that they don't have talent on this team or that there aren't bright spots or rising stars.
Yep.
But as a team, they're not good enough. And they've had this same group of people, the core or whatever that you want to talk about. Barnes, Buddy, Fox, Holmes, for a few years now. And they haven't made any improvements.
That brings me to my next subject. Over the last 5 games, I don't want to be negative, guys. I don't want to sound negative. But prepping for this podcast tonight, before the game, I was very negative. I mean, how could you not be negative? You're on a 7-game losing streak. You're playing against the Nets and the Warriors next. It is not looking good. Your best players I don't want to say refusing to play, but his ankle hurts too hard, and there's not been diagnosed an actual injury to the ankle. But Calvin, the average margin of loss over the last 5 games is 20 points. 20 points.
That's a bottom dweller in the NBA.
And on top of that, one of those games they lost by 53. So that skews your numbers a little bit, right? We saw some other losses there. But you just say, okay, over the last 50 games, if you were to average 20-point losses, that means over the last 5 games, they've lost or been down by over 100 points combined.
They were down by almost 100 points in 2 games back to back.
That's crazy, dude. It just blows my mind. It blows my mind that I don't want to throw shade at Vivek because I love Vivek, but you're still trying to make the playoffs, man. You're still trying to make the playoffs. This team has almost lost twice as many games as it's won. You're getting blown out. You already fired your coach. Your best player's not playing. We're already halfway into the season.
And the thing about the Kings over the past couple of years, or I guess 3 or 4 years, that's different from one of the worst teams in the league is that they go through these random hot streaks. They'll beat the Clippers in LA on the day of the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah, that was
when
great.
They were all healthy.
Yeah, we loved it.
And you watch that game and you're like, this team, they look like they could be a real team.
Yep.
And then they end up with 2 9-game losing streaks in that same season after that.
It's like coronavirus, right? Some people have no symptoms.
Exactly.
Other people die.
They give you just enough to make you want to hang on, to hope.
Yep.
And then they break your heart.
And that's exactly what tonight was, right? It's
I don't
7
know.
games in a row.
If you got a ton of hope off of this game, this one game, I want whatever you're drinking.
I'm just saying collectively, right? You look at the Kings in the past. You lost 7 games in a row. The last 5, average margin of loss is 20 points. And then you go ahead and beat the Nets tonight. What if they beat the Warriors tomorrow? I mean, it's not likely, but there's a reason they play all the games, right?
Yes.
So we didn't think they were going to win tonight, and they end up winning.
Yeah.
Potentially,
I didn't think James Harden and Kyrie were going to combine for 2 of 26 from the field either, or 7 of 26 from the field.
Potentially they could win tomorrow night, and that's that false hope that they give you, and that's what Vivek is kind of clinging on to, right? Is he's like, I've seen
Vivek.
this team. Yeah, exactly.
Monty McNair is clinging on to that as well.
I've seen this team play well sometimes, and if only we could do that every night, we would be in the playoffs. And that's the problem, right? Because you and I talk about it. That's the difference between a good player and a great player, right? Is a good player can play exceptional sometimes, but a great player plays exceptional every time.
Well, not every time. I mean, Steph has had a ton of bad shooting days.
Yep.
But the difference is it's the team around you. The Warriors are a great team because even if Steph goes 5 for 20 from the field, they have enough good players and they have a culture and a system that they play the same way every day. You know, they just beat, who was it yesterday? They didn't have Steph, Draymond, or Clay. I forget who they were playing. They were down big in the game. They still ended up winning. Jordan Poole has a great game. And they talked about it afterwards. The reason that the Warriors are capable of doing those things is because they groom their players the same way. It doesn't matter if you're Steph Curry or if you're the 14th or 15th guy off the bench. They play the same style. They share the ball. Everyone has to be expected to step up when they get their opportunity. If you got an open shot, you're going to take it. You know, it's like we talked about with the Nets tonight. They're not an equal opportunity scoring team. Nicholas Claxton had a great game tonight, but some of these guys, if James Harden and Kyrie Irving are struggling and Durant is out, they're not used to having the ball in their hands or being expected to score. So all of a sudden they're changing the way they play mid-game. The Warriors don't do that. Everybody plays the same way every single time. Same with Phoenix.
Thank you for the segue into my next subject. This is a quote from James Ham today on a podcast. He said, "You don't have a team, you have a collection of players." I want to hear your thoughts on the difference between a team and a collection of players, which apparently the Kings have at this point, and that is the reason why they are struggling.
A team has a set of goals and a belief in themselves, and they have an identity and a style of play. Like they're consistent. They might not be the best team in the league. They're probably not going to be the worst team in the league, but they have, essentially the easiest way I can say it is they have an identity and a system that they stick to.
Exactly.
And
which the Kings don't have.
It's an organizational thing. It starts at the top and it trickles its way down. You can't have your head coach be the end-all, be-all. Your GM sees it a different way, and the owner is stuck in the middle, or the owner is trying to play favorites or something like that. Everyone's got to be on the same team. Everyone's got to be committed. I'm not saying that the Kings players aren't committed, but you look at it, their team, their organization. They've had multiple different head coaches over the past few years. They haven't really had a continuity of style of play, or, we always talk about who's the leader on this team, who's the star, who's the best player. If you don't know the answers to those questions, then your team is in trouble. They just are.
Yep, I agree with you. Yeah. It's unfortunate, man. I don't want to keep going back to James Ham, but I've been watching a lot of James Ham stuff this week, and so I want to talk about kind of the things that he's been concerned about. That's one of them. But on top of that, you have guys like De'Aaron Fox that aren't even playing right now. And I want to preface this. Sorry, guys. I'm going to say a lot of inappropriate things you could say, or not PC friendly things, stuff like that. But according to James Ham, De'Aaron Fox is full of shit, man. He said he's even heard from De'Aaron Fox's camp that it's not an ankle sprain. And basically at this point it's up to what is his pain tolerance? What can he play with? I don't even know how many games in a row now he's sat out, where he's just like, I've warmed up, can't go.
I think this is number 6.
Is this related to the trade rumors? Can we expect to see him back after February 10th, or is this a Ben Simmons situation?
Well, the problem is it's all speculation, and whenever it's all speculation, that's usually not a good thing. I mean, for the player that is supposed to be your franchise player, your leader, even though I think most people don't view him that way, but that's what he is supposed to be for this team, right? If you're going to, and I totally understand his side of things. You've been there for 5 years. All you've done is suck.
Yep.
The team hasn't made a huge effort to get you legitimate help in other places. They've drafted more point guards.
Yep.
They've made these little itty-bitty trades. They haven't really, shown you that you're our guy and we're going to do whatever it takes for this to succeed. We're going to put the people around you.
And Luke was his guy.
They've fired head coaches. Yeah, all that stuff. So I understand he's got to be very, very frustrated. But like you said, at some point, guys do quit. Everyone has their limit. Yep. Some people's limit is way above others. I don't know what De'Aaron Fox's limit is, but I worry that he's reached it.
Yeah, I agree. And, firing a guy that he had so much support for in Luke Walton. And I don't want to lie. Calvin and I wanted Luke Walton fired as well. I
never wanted him hired.
Exactly. And, I hated Luke because he's a Laker. Like, straight up. No lie. I didn't like him because he was a Laker. You have some success with the Golden State Warriors, yes. Who wouldn't? with that team. He goes on, he gets his dream job with the Lakers. He gets fired. The Kings hire him right away. They don't do their due diligence. They don't interview anybody else. They just say, Luke was the guy we wanted last time. He went to the Lakers. Now is our chance. We're hiring him. And I'm going to touch back on what James Ham said. You get stuck in this cycle where the GM, there comes a point where the GM is looking more out for himself than for the team, right? If your owner is shouting and saying, I want to win now. I want to win now. We need to win now. If you're the GM, your focus changes. You're not looking at proper moves to help this team in 2 years from now or 3 years from now because potentially you're gone. So he's in this race. He's in this mindset of like, I need to get better now because my job is on the line. The Kings don't matter. I matter. And the only way I'm going to keep my job is I do what the owner wants or whatever I think is going to lead to some short-term success now. And that is the biggest problem, right? Is we can't have guys sacrificing the future to win right now. And I feel like we're at a crossroads, right? Everything we've heard from Vivek, and I don't want to put down Vivek. I've constantly been a Vivek supporter. I will always support him because he kept the Kings in Sacramento. And on his side, Vivek has never done anything intentionally to hurt the Kings. Maybe he's said stupid things, like what if we played 4 on and we had a cherry picker or stuff like that? Like stupid things happen. People say stupid things. But he's never intentionally been a bad owner. You looked at some of these guys like Donald Sterling, James Dolan. Some of these guys have intentionally hurt their franchises. Vivek has never been this guy. He's always wanted what's the best for the Kings, but maybe he's looking at it in a very short-sighted context at this point instead of looking at the big picture. But forcing a guy like Monty to make a move to win now, otherwise Monty's fired, can hurt the Kings. And I don't think he's done that. I kind of like the fact, obviously I want a move to happen just like everybody else. But you look at the moves that Monty has actually made, I think they've helped the team. Even the trades that fell apart. Yeah. The Bogdan sign and trade. Everyone says Bogdan, the Kings lost him for nothing. You look at Isaiah Thomas. You look at some of these other guys. The Kings have had talented players. They've lost them for absolutely nothing. He tried his best. He tried to get that sign and trade with the Bucks. They would have had Dante DiVincenzo. That would have helped the Kings. He was trading Buddy Hield to the Lakers for guys like Kyle Kuzma and Montrezl Harrell. That would have helped the Kings. Those were good deals, and they fell apart. So I have to commend him in the fact that he has not just fallen aside to like, okay, I need to save my job. I need to make a trade to help them right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with everything that you said. There's just always two sides to every story, right? I mean, we talked just a minute ago about the difference between a team and a collection of players. Everyone in the moment was really, really over the moon about the draft picks, Tyrese and Davion. But you have that best available strategy of draft picks that leads to a collection of players ultimately, right? Because you didn't maybe take the right pick to fill out the team or the roster or the starting lineup better. You took who you thought was the best available player. It's a really difficult argument to have because obviously drafting Tyrese was a great move. He's been a really, really good player. He's helped this team a lot. A lot of people have argued or debated over whether or not he and De'Aaron Fox are a good pairing together. But De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Haliburton as your starting backcourt is better than a lot, not all, but better than a lot of starting backcourts, I would say.
I agree.
So it's a really difficult, again, line to straddle. But I agree. people are starting to pile on Monty McNair right now, and that's obviously because this trade deadline is coming up really shortly. There's a lot of pressure on him. The Kings are having a very bad year, especially with the expectations they had coming in. So he is going to, that's the nature of the beast and the job. You're going to have so much pressure built up on you, especially around this time. Even if you're a contending team, you're going to have pressure as the GM on you. But it comes down to making that move. You have to make that move and take that chance. Take a risk. I think Kings fans will, at the end of the day, still, give you props, or at least say that you were doing your best effort at your job. If this trade deadline comes and passes and there aren't any major moves made, I don't know what the plan is other than we're just trying to lose games without saying it.
Yeah.
Which, if that's the plan, then that's the plan. Like, if the Kings brass came out tomorrow and said, this season's over, we're not going to, we can't make the deal we want for Ben Simmons. He was our prized piece. So we're going to kind of chill here at the trade deadline. Maybe we'll try and trade for some draft picks for next season. Yeah. But the plan is to get a better draft position. That's a really hard thing for an organization to say, but I think a lot of people would be relieved if they said that.
Yeah. And this draft pick is just getting more valuable day in and day out, right? Every day it's getting more and more and more valuable. But, one of the things that I've been so, against in the past with some of these GMs is the fact that they have made bad trades, right? Like, Vlade Divac is like, we're going to sign guys in the offseason, so I'm trading away a first-round pick and some of these salaries to clear space so that I can sign a free agent. We all know that Sacramento doesn't sign free agents. It would be great. In a perfect world, we would be signing these guys. But that, for me, was a bad trade. The league's
respect first before you get
that was a bad trade. Monty has not made any bad trades. And
I definitely wouldn't say he's made a bad trade.
Yeah. But I get what you're saying, and it makes sense. A lot of people are like, something needs to happen now. It needs to happen now. A trade needs to happen now.
And
but
let's
Calvin,
be honest.
Let's look at who Monty's who his mentor was.
Yeah.
Who is Monty's mentor?
His name is Daryl Morey.
And where does he work?
Works in Philadelphia currently.
And what's currently happening in Philadelphia?
They got a big mess on their hands named Ben Simmons that they can't clean up.
He's playing hardball. So if your mentor is in this situation and that's the guy that you learned from for 13 years, and you're in similar situations with guys like Buddy Hield and Marvin Bagley, who nobody thought was going to be on the Kings this season. Nobody thought they were going to be on the Kings. They wanted to be traded. Monty tried to trade them, but he realized and he said, okay, well, I'm not getting what I want, or I'm not getting equal value. Kind of sounds like a guy in Philadelphia, right? Who's had a guy he hasn't been able to trade.
Yeah.
He hasn't pulled the trigger because he hasn't got equal value or what he thought he's worth. But at least Monty
different situations, but yes, similar.
At least these guys are playing in Sacramento.
Yeah.
I try to look for positives. Marvin Bagley's injured right now. I think it is a real injury. But Buddy Hield has been disengaged. We saw him play decent tonight. At least these guys are professionals and they're showing up to work. I don't know how much Buddy Hield's performance over the last 7 games or 10 games or 20, whatever games you want to say, has really helped his trade value. But at least he's not saying, I refuse to play.
Yeah. At least he's not doing that. I mean, it's less of a headache for the Kings coaching staff and the Kings front office if people like that don't go that route. I mean, for us fans, like how many people in this chat right now would be upset if Buddy Hield tomorrow came out and said, you know what? I don't want to play for Sacramento anymore.
My ankle hurts.
We'd all be like, bye, see you later. So it's just a different situation. And when it comes to Monty McNair, you also got to think like he comes he comes into a very difficult situation immediately when he gets hired. This is a team that now has the longest playoff streak in the NBA. This is a team that struggles. They're a small market team. They can't go out and sign big free agents. You know, the Knicks, for example, they've been bad for a long time, but they're still the New York Knicks. Like, even though people say, well, they couldn't sign Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and all this stuff, the Knicks still have a lot of value just based on their name. The Kings don't have that.
Yep.
And now the Kings have this playoff drought on top of them. So you come into a situation, you haven't even finished your second year, but the pressure is going to be much, much more amplified on you because of those things. Because you're in a small market team, you're in an organization that has been bad for a long time. The organization has a really loyal fan base that really wants this team to be good. All of those things work against you right from the beginning. Mm-hmm. So you have to know your days are numbered automatically, which is why I think that you have to take a chance right now. Whether it's trading for a guy like Miles Turner, who you and I both really love, who's hurt right now, and it might mean that they lose more games going, in the long run or in the short term.
Yep.
But he comes back next year healthy and they have a much better team plus a good draft pick. Or trading for a guy like Ben Simmons, or, they need to make a splash. When's the last time that Sacramento really took a chance? It was probably Weber and Bibby.
Yeah. I mean, Rudy Gay was a late addition.
Yeah, but Rudy Gay wasn't the same player as Chris Webber.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's what I'm saying. There are those types of people who are available right now. Yeah. So get it done.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Something needs to happen. We need to make a change. And I see a couple guys here. I want to give a shout out to Dave Yeager. He's officially back with the Philadelphia 76ers after undergoing some cancer treatments.
Very happy to hear that.
So very, very happy to see him back. And hey, who knows? Maybe he could be back with Sacramento. I know I would love that, but would the Kings is the question. All right, Calvin, let's talk about De'Aaron Fox here. We mentioned the ankle injury, whatever it potentially is. The training staff says it's nothing. He says he has some pain. They've done MRIs. They've done everything. They say there's no ankle sprain. There's no ankle injury. It's a pain tolerance at this point. I hate to keep going back to James Ham, but I got to bring him up again.
He's a smart man, James Ham.
He told me a story, or on one of his podcasts, he was telling a story about Doug Christie. About Doug Christie's last year with the Sacramento Kings. Doug Christie had an ankle injury. The Kings training staff, everything told him it wasn't a big deal. He didn't have anything wrong with him. He thought it was bigger. He knew it was injured, and he thought it was bigger than they were making it out to be. Kings up trading him to Orlando. He plays a few weeks in Orlando, is not playing too well, decides he's going to get surgery on his ankle. It's supposed to be a 1-hour procedure. They're going to clear up a bone spur, blah, 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 whatever. It ends up lasting over 6 hours. Apparently, the bone was growing around and over his tendon and preventing any flexibility in the ankle. And it was a big deal that the Kings flat out missed.
Yeah.
He ends up recovering from the surgery in full, being able to return, has full mobility of the ankle. Not saying that this is what's currently happening with De'Aaron Fox, but it's possible. Teams have missed things in the past. We saw about the whole Kawhi Leonard thing with San Antonio.
Yeah.
We've seen this happen in the past. So I just kind of want to hear your thoughts about De'Aaron Fox. Is this a serious issue? Is this something the Kings have missed? Is this something he's making up? Is it something in the middle? Where do we go from here?
Oh, man. Well, where do we go from here is a tough question to answer. I'll start with saying, I mean, injuries are a tough thing. You can't always, doctors are human. They don't always find the answer right away. Quick, short side story. and you know this story very well because you were there that day. I broke and dislocated my elbow when I was 14 years old. I fell on the ground. I knew something was wrong immediately. I got to the doctor's office. They took x-rays of my arm. They said, we don't know what's wrong with your elbow or what's wrong with your arm. My elbow was like the size of my head at that point.
Yep.
They said, we're going to have to x-ray your other arm.
Your head was much smaller at this point.
Yes. I didn't have as much hair. We're going to have to take x-rays of your other arm and compare the two. And from there, they figured out what happened. So, like, things like that happen in the medical world all the time. You don't always find the answer right away. And when it comes to an individual person, everybody is different. So pain tolerance is different. Your overall psyche is different. The way you deal with an injury for everyone is different. Some guys are, for some reason, able to go out there and tough it out and hit 2 free throws after they tore their Achilles or their ACL or something like that. Some guys are not. So I don't, it's so hard to speculate as to what the actual issue is with his ankle. All that being said, this is a very serious issue for the Kings, regardless of what the outcome is or what the situation is. Whether he is actually more hurt than we really believe, that's a serious situation because he's your star player. He's on a max contract. If he really is more hurt or needs surgery or something like that, they better figure it out now so he's ready for next season. If it's the opposite of that and that he's essentially faking it because he doesn't want to play with this team anymore, obviously that's a huge issue as well because now you've basically turned, it's like Anakin Skywalker. He was your star, the savior, and you turned him against you pretty much.
Yep.
So it's a big deal no matter what. I don't know what's going to happen here. My gut instinct says that it's not that serious of an injury and that he would rather not play right now because, like we said before, he's reached his breaking point. It's totally speculation. I don't really know what the deal is, but it certainly feels that way to me.
Yeah. I also saw a quote for him saying that he's had a lack of mobility in that ankle for a year and a half now. So this could be a lingering problem or a lingering issue, or it could be a real problem that's been bothering him for a year plus, and he just finally reached the point.
It would be pretty scary to see him at 100%.
Exactly.
Because he's looked pretty mobile for the past couple of years.
But he could have finally reached the point where he's like, it's not worth risking my injury that I already have for a team that sucks.
Yeah.
Right? And they also, when I was watching the podcast earlier today, they also brought up Shaq. Shaq had an injury, ankle injury in Miami that wasn't getting better. And he went to Phoenix, and all of a sudden, Phoenix revitalized his career, and it was 7 seconds or Shaq, and he was playing incredible basketball. So, it's really there's so much that goes into a successful basketball team, right? Like, we talk about the players, we talk about the coaching staff, we talk about ownership, front office. Like, there's so much more that goes into that. There's fans, there's medical staff, there's just like it's everything together. And you've talked about a little bit of luck in the past too, right? Is important.
Oh, it's always important for every team.
Your team has a little bit of luck. You're able to avoid injuries, or you're able to do this or do that. Like, it could change your season for sure. But De'Aaron Fox
Look
sitting
at the
out.
San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah. But De'Aaron Fox sitting out at this point is just not a good look for Sacramento.
No, it's not a good look.
The rumors going around, the losing streak.
Yeah, you also have to think about what the state of the NBA is today, right? It's much more promoted now for if you don't feel 100%, or if you got a sore ankle or you got a sore elbow or something like that, take the night off. In the 90s, the 80s, guys couldn't afford to do that. They couldn't go to the coach and be like, "Coach, I don't feel great today," or my ankle kind of hurts, because they might lose their spot altogether. You sit that one game, some guy comes in, and yes, that can still happen today. But the players have so much power in the NBA right now. Mm-hmm. And LeBron James obviously helped create that culture.
Yep.
But you look at Kawhi Leonard, you look at other people like that who started taking that route of, I'm not going to risk my long-term health or even my short-term health for one game just so that, you know, I can make the coach or the fans happy or whatever. I'm looking at the long-term picture here. And maybe De'Aaron Fox is doing that as well. I don't know. But you typically don't see that on a team that is really bad or loses a lot of games. Like that right there is a red flag. It's like,
yep.
Well, you're just sitting out because you know the team is terrible and the trade deadline is in a few days.
Can you text Alex? He said he wants to join us.
I don't have Alex's number, but I can hit him up on Instagram if you're on Instagram right now.
Vinny, can you send him a link to the Zoom? So he wants to join us in tonight. Ryan, we did win tonight. I hope you're celebrating because I know I am. Kings beat the Brooklyn Nets 112-101, and it feels pretty good. Even though they've lost a ton of games.
It always feels good to win a game.
It does feel good. YT, you know, Daryl Morey has been trying to get Haliburton, but I don't think the Kings are selling Haliburton. So I don't know if you could blame Daryl Morey for that at this point. Brian says, Cal, you're on fire tonight.
Thanks, Brian.
I love to hear it. DeMarcus Cousins is in Fox's ears telling him how bad of an organization Sacramento is. It's very, very possible. Alfie says Calvin is on beast mode tonight. That's good, dude. You're rolling.
I mean, I've gotten to this point where it's like you said, before the show started tonight, we were both in a bad mood, right? Sour about the team. And this win, it amplifies that to me. It's like it doesn't. I don't want.
Oh,
they
won.
They
might not make a trade
the wrong
now.
Side of the coin, you know, exactly. It's like, oh, we just beat one of the best teams in the league. Well, no. I mean, yes, they did, but their best players either didn't play or had shit games, and it's one game. Anything could happen, but it just comes back to the same old thing for me at this point with this team is that they're not there. They're so far away. They need to do so much stuff. And I have been victim in the past of feeling like they were making strides. They're not making strides.
Yep. Speaking of strides or lack of strides, Terence Davis is officially out for the season, having wrist surgery. Good role player the Kings picked up late last year.
Yep.
One of their deadline deals, and he's out now. How does this impact the team?
Well, it definitely impacts the team because we've talked a lot about the Kings bench and how much of a strength that's been. And the bench has won them games this year. They've only won 19. The bench has definitely won them some of those games. So not having a guy like Terence Davis, who has been good off the bench and good as a starter, he's been a little inconsistent. Injuries, you know, I've obviously set him back a little bit this season. He's still young. You talked about Davion being undersized. He's another undersized player for his position.
Mm-hmm.
But he has that ability, kind of like Buddy Hield, to get hot at any moment. He can blow up, hit a bunch of threes. You know, he's a valuable piece for this Kings team. The way that they're currently constructed, he's one of the guys that they kind of rely on to fill a specific role.
Yep.
Now that he's out, Fox is out, Davion is in the starting lineup, that makes your bench that much more susceptible, as we've seen in the past few games, to really kind of muck things up for the team.
And more importantly, not available for trade at this point.
That as well.
He's out for the rest of the season, and he will probably remain with the Sacramento Kings. Not that I'm not on that ship, but it just it takes another potential out. Speaking of trades, the Jazz lost, as we call him on the show, Joel Ingles, or Joe Ingles.
Joe Ingles.
For the season, and they are rumored to be interested in a guy like Harrison Barnes as a replacement.
Perfect replacement.
Should we fire up the trade machine here? Because
That's what we do on this show. So.
I really don't even know if a trade is possible between Utah and Sacramento.
Oh, did I get the link?
Harrison Barnes makes a lot of money. There's a lot going on here.
I don't have his number. How do I send it?
So, 20 million here. I mean, unless you're giving up a guy like Bogdanovich, which would be hilarious for Sacramento. Bogdanovich for Harrison Barnes straight up. I don't know if that's exactly worth it. I've heard rumors of Jordan Clarkson. He makes, $12 million a year? So you'd have to throw in, how funny would that be to bring Rudy Gay back to Sacramento, where he is, quote-unquote, in basketball.
Jared Butler, I like that. Key Kings. I like where your head's at.
How do you feel about this deal, Calvin? Clarkson and Rudy Gay for Harrison Barnes.
Done deal. Absolutely done deal.
Does this help both teams?
I'm not so sure how willing Utah is going to be to part ways with Jordan Clarkson. I mean, he's been amazing for them.
Yeah.
They've had a lot of guys be really good for them. But Jordan Clarkson has really kind of, I feel like, come into who he is as a player on that team.
Mm-hmm.
He's won a Sixth Man of the Year there. So I think it's a great deal for the Kings. I think the Jazz it's not a terrible deal because they're getting a player that they can really use and fits their system really well. Really, really well. I mean, imagine Harrison Barnes on that team. All they do is share the ball, get open threes for everybody. He's a good rebounder. He moves well without the ball. They're a very willing passing team. He fits in excellent on that squad. But you're giving up Jordan Clarkson, who's been tremendous for them.
But is this a good trade for Sacramento?
Does that actually make you better?
But is this a good trade for Sacramento? You're bringing in another point guard who's locked up for 2 more years at $12 million, and Rudy Gay, who's locked in for another 2 years. I know
Jordan
the Kings.
Clarkson's not a point guard.
I mean, he's listed here as point guard, $12 million.
I don't care what they list him at. He is not a point guard.
You take him as a shooting guard?
100% a shooting guard.
Okay.
He's like the definition of a shooting guard.
But you're basically trading a guy in Harrison Barnes for two guys that are locked up for the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
Monty's preach flexibility.
That's true.
Do these guys move the needle for Sacramento? Does it help them next season? I'm not really sure.
I don't know. I would much rather have Jordan Clarkson on this team than Buddy Hield. Like, that's a huge upgrade to me, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are more things that the Kings have to get done after this because that's what we've said, the whole past couple of months. It's not one deal that's going to fix this team. It's multiple things that have to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a great start, though.
Yeah. And on that topic, I want to talk about the last thing in this section, and that's rebuilding the Kings. James Ham seems to be in the camp where the Kings need to fire everybody on this team. They need to trade every player on this team except for Davion Mitchell, Tyrese Haliburton. Trade them for anybody. He said it doesn't matter. Whatever you can get, trade them for, because maybe that's not the guy you're aiming for, but that will give you assets to trade for the guy you do want. So maybe they decide, okay, it's the deadline. I'm trading away Fox. I'm trading away Buddy Hield. I'm trading away Bagley. I'm trading away Holmes. I'm trading away Barnes just to get assets. And then I revisit that in the offseason, and I sign a new head coach. I figure out what style of play we're going to play, and then I make deals and I draft guys. Maybe I have a top 5 pick that complement that style of play. I want to hear your thoughts on this because I know you're not a tank guy, but I feel like the writing on the wall is here this season. We're not making the playoffs. The play-in is a joke, in my opinion, at this point. They need to do something. Is it complete and utter rebuild from the bottom, or from the top up necessary?
Is it necessary? That's a question that I can't answer just because I don't know what potential deals the Kings could be making right now. I don't know what Monty McNair, the conversations he's having with people. I mean, I sure as hell hope he's calling these teams and asking, is Jeremy Grant available? What's it going to take to get him? What about Miles Turner? What about Sabonis? What about Simmons? All these guys, you know, he's got to be doing that. But I just don't know what's available. So again, we've talked about it multiple times on the show. They need to pick a direction. So if that direction
100%.
is a rebuild, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's fucking do it. Let's stop being in this middle lane that gets nowhere, where we think we're maybe good enough to be a play-in team.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And the fact that we've missed the playoffs for so long is the only reason that anyone hung on to that possibility. Like, oh, we're so close. We're almost a 500 team. We're almost in a play-in tournament.
Yep.
We're almost in the playoff. We're almost the 8 seed that gets swept first round. Like, we would just be excited to see those things because it's been so long. But at this point, do what you think is best for the team. If there's a deal out there that you think is going to improve this team, either for the rest of this season and give you a chance to make the playoffs with the assumption that it continues into long-term success, or a deal for an injured player like Miles Turner that you think it's not this year, but it's next year where we make the major improvements, then do that.
Yep.
If you can't get that deal done, then yes, let's rebuild this team. And my argument to that is, why does it have to be Tyrese Haliburton is the only player you're not trading? I know people are really getting on De'Aaron Fox, but what if you just kept him and built around him? He still hasn't really been given, I think, the proper tools or the proper teammates to really be his best in this league yet. So why does it have to be Tyrese? Just because he's on a cheaper contract?
I agree
still
with
going to have
you,
to pay him at the end of the day.
But De'Aaron Fox is, I want to say, quit on this team. Why do you want a quitter?
But that's my point. It didn't have to get to this. He didn't have to quit on this team. He said the whole time he's been in Sacramento, I love it here. I want to be here. I want this team to be good. What did this organization do for him? They didn't do anything in the 5 years that he's been here.
Yep, that's true. It's a tough spot, and the issues just continue to compound on each other. I'm all in for a full rebuild at this point because I think it is necessary. If you're going to change the culture, you need to get rid of everybody. And I'm tired of these half-ass rebuilds.
Really, but either way you look at it, it's a full rebuild. Because if we're talking about making deals, the Kings are not a win-now team. But if you talk about win now or like really you're trying to get to that playoffs right here, right now, it's still pretty much a rebuild because this roster is not good together. So you're going to have to move a bunch of players anyway.
Yep.
Which is kind of like a mini rebuild in itself.
So let's go over the roster here. Alvin Gentry was asked on whether guys had quote unquote quit on the team, and he gave a pretty diplomatic answer. But I think for me, it's pretty clear that there are players that have given up or quit on the Kings. They want to be traded. They're welcoming a trade. I kind of want to go down the entire roster here, Calvin, and hear your opinion on whether this player has quit or not quit. I know I'm putting you in a tough position, but I told you I was going to ask tough questions.
Let's do it.
So let's start right here at the top with Harrison Barnes.
I don't feel like you can say Harrison Barnes has quit.
Okay.
I mean, it just... I don't know the guy, but everything about him, his personality, he's a champion in this league. Like,
he's happy to be a professional basketball player.
Yeah.
And he's going to do his job. What about Mo Harkless?
I don't know. I'm probably not going to have solid answers one way or another on any particular player.
We could do kind of like a real estate transaction here.
One thing I'll
say,
yes,
no, or not to my knowledge.
Okay. Well, I'll say not to my knowledge, I guess. But one thing I will say is it's obvious that Mo Harkless is frustrated with this team.
Oh, yeah.
He's one of the few people on the team that you can actually see it on his face during the game.
Yep.
The problem with that is he's not one of the best players on this team.
Yeah, he doesn't have the talent to back it up.
So it's great to have that guy, but if that guy is going to sit on the bench for 5 straight games and then maybe play 10 minutes after that,
yeah,
that's not going to change much for your team.
He'd be great on a dodgeball team.
He'd be good on a contending team.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the players the Kings have would be great on contending teams. Harrison Barnes, Mo Harkless would have a good role on a lot of teams in this league. I mean, anybody. Davion Mitchell would have a really good role on a contending team.
Yep.
It's just tough.
All right, well, let's keep moving down here then. Richaun Holmes.
No, Richaun hasn't quit.
So Davion Mitchell.
Definitely hasn't quit.
Tyrese Haliburton.
No, hasn't played long enough. Both of those guys have not been in the league or on the Kings long enough to quit.
Metu.
Again, hasn't played long enough. Also fighting for a roster spot.
Louis King.
Fighting his life out for a roster spot.
Damian
Definitely
Jones.
can't quit. Yeah. No, he hasn't quit. These
Buddy
guys
Hield.
are trying to play. Buddy Hield has quit, in my opinion.
Marvin Bagley.
Mentally. I feel like Marvin Bagley did quit, and then Luke Walton got fired, and Alvin Gentry looked at him and said, "We need you." And it kind of reinvigorated him.
De'Aaron Fox.
As much as I want to say he hasn't quit, what is happening right now makes it really, really hard for me to say that he hasn't. He just continues to do things that make it look like he doesn't want to be a part of this team.
So that's my whole point was why would you want to keep guys that quit? And before you answer that, I want to welcome Alex from the Hair and Beard Podcast back to the show. What's up, Alex? Thank you so much for joining us. It's good to see you. How's your evening?
It's good. A Kings win always means, it's a little bit better, but I'm very confused because just as you guys have said, you guys have done fantastic today, by the way, just spitting out fire today. Great job, guys.
Thank you.
That's Calvin.
Yeah, but we play so shitty that I'm kind of accustomed to it. And then when we play good, it's like, I don't let myself get confused, but of course you're thinking like, why isn't that there more often? But it is what it is. Just to answer your question shortly, having a nice night. It was nice to see the squad get a win, and I can't complain.
Yeah, so all of you watching, I don't know if you've watched the Hair and Beard Podcast, but make sure you guys check it out. We will post it down in the description of this video. Awesome content, Kings, wrestling, whatever your fancy, they talk about it. So, Alex, we're discussing a really tough subject here, and I kind of put Calvin on the spot, and I'm going to put you on the spot here, but we are talking about Kings players that have quit on the team. Calvin and I, we kind of went down the entire roster here looking at guys. I'm not going to bring you all the way through there, but if you were to name a couple guys on this roster that you were to say have quit on the Sacramento Kings, who would it be?
I really hope Fox hasn't. And you guys make good points. There's reasonings where I can see if, depending on the severity of the ankle, I really hope he hasn't. I hope he hasn't. If he has, that would break my little heart, honestly. But I would say kind of Buddy, because there's times he's just, like Cal says, Buddy Chuckets. He's just throwing it nonstop.
I can't take credit for that nickname, by the way. I don't know who gave us that in the chat, but it came from one of our chats.
It's fire.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's amazing. I love it.
Me too.
Even though it means that he sucks, I still love it.
Trying to think, besides him, Tyrese looks like he's still young enough to where he still cares. So is Davion, of course. Harkless, I remember him getting mad at Buddy before and yelling at him, and so I think he does care, but he's not the most talented guy for sure. So maybe he hasn't. Jones is still young enough to care too. It seems like Holmes is a guy that I'm very confused about right now because on the outside looking in, he's this guy that's not good at one particular thing, but he hustles, right? That's his main thing is he hustles. He's like a Montrezl Harrell 2.0, quote unquote. But I don't know why it seems like ever since he put the goggles on, it's like I don't know if they're fogging up or something, but he's not like the same intense dude.
I couldn't agree more.
You guys.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and again, maybe it's because like I don't wear glasses, right? But like I've put them on before, and like I feel like when you take them off, you just feel so much open, and it's kind of silly to say, but you just feel more into life. You don't have this shield on. I know he used to wear it before. Maybe he's still getting used to the goggles and used to having that shield on. I have no idea. Now, do I think he's quit? Not necessarily, but his production is just so low now. Even rebounding, it's just crazy. So again, I know I'm answering politically correct with this whole tough thing.
Well, it's all speculation. I mean, there's no real way to tell what the answer to any of these questions are. Like,
you're just giving me ammo for my next question.
Go for it. Go for it.
All right. Well, Alex, if you were, let's say Monty McNair was fired today and you were hired tomorrow, I just want to hear how you're finishing out the season, how you're looking at everything, what kind of deals you might be making. What is your whole mindset on this Kings team if you are the guy in charge?
I'm glad you asked this. It's actually changed a lot since we've been losing, to be honest. We're 13 games below 500, I think, or 12 games or something like that.
I think it's 12 now. Yep.
Yeah. Can we still make the plan? Yeah, technically. Like if you're talking numbers wise, sure. But we're still going to be stuck in basketball purgatory, just trying to make the 9th, 10th seed the whole time. So I wouldn't be super mad at tanking, even though what's his name, Leo, right? He hates the whole tanking thing.
Oh yeah, Cowboy Kingdom. Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, I wouldn't be mad at it. We need so much holes to fill in this roster right now. I wouldn't be mad at tanking, but I wouldn't be mad at making some moves too. So it seems like Ben Simmons is off the table, right?
The thing about the 10th and the 9th seed, though, is it's like, okay, let's say you're in the 10th or the 9th seed. That doesn't mean you made the playoffs. Like, it doesn't mean that. That means you have to win 2 games to make the playoffs. Like, it's like fool's gold, right? Like, it's almost like they added another spot just to make fun of us, right? Where they're like, oh, Kings, it's here, almost got it. Yep, nope, oh, here it is.
Yeah, no, I'm not even like a big fan of the play-in because it's literally saying 20 teams out of 30 can make it, which kind of sounds silly. You know what I mean? And you're not even making it, like you said. It's really the top 6 that are making it because
exactly. I agree with you 100%. The play-in was a bad idea, but again, it's money. All the professional sports leagues are doing this, adding playoff games that have meaning, but they don't have as much meaning, and
not good for Sacramento.
It
adds worse teams into the playoff field is what it does. So
yeah, and it gives us false hope too, like, oh guys, we made it, let's celebrate, let's do all that stuff. But to go back on your question, I'm not mad at the Josh Hart trade that I saw earlier, because it seems like Buddy just wants to go somewhere. I wouldn't be mad at Buddy for.
So you're going to send him back to the team that we traded him from?
Yeah. I mean, it's just funny how things work out sometimes.
It is.
But I like Josh Hart. He's fairly young. He plays hard, and I feel like he would work out good with the squad. Honestly, if I was the GM, and this is just me being biased, I would try anything in the world to get Zach LaVine. He's my favorite player in the NBA.
Jackson Hayes?
Zach LaVine.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said Jackson Hayes. Zach LaVine is your favorite player in the NBA?
Oh yeah, dude. That when he was going to get when he signed that deal here, a couple years ago, and then they matched it. Chicago matched it or whatever. I was so happy. I was, oh my God, my favorite player on my favorite team. Let's go. It didn't work out. I think who knows if he still would have even been here, but he's so athletic. You know what I mean? And he shoots he shoots the 3 really good. Defense isn't great, but who plays defense anyways? his firepower, I think with Fox and who else knows who would have been on the team, just would have been fantastic on the squad. No, our defense still would have been horrible, but I think we would have put up a lot of points.
Zach LaVine is a great player.
The thing for me, what's crazy is Zach LaVine is only 26 years old.
Yeah.
Which is incredible because it feels like he's been in the NBA forever. Like
he has been.
He's been in dunk contests. He's done all this stuff. Like, shout out to Zach LaVine. The Chicago Bulls are looking great. They're definitely proving everybody wrong. And I agree with you. I'd love to have him. I mean, there's a lot of guys that I would love to have. But I got to say, at this point, Zach LaVine's not a realistic option.
Oh, for sure. Definitely
No.
not. Definitely not.
Not exactly.
So is there anybody that you'd be looking to target here if you were in charge of the Kings right now?
Realistic, I think Josh Hart's gettable. I even think Sabonis is still gettable to extent too. And I'm also not mad at trading picks, especially if we can get, saw the report earlier, a first-round pick for Barnes. I would love that. Just try to pile up some first-round picks and make a splash move. If we can still try to entice the Ben Simmons thing, if we can get us a bonus, get him for next year, bring him in, even shut him down so they can see, we're going to have Fox, Haliburton, Mitchell, and we want you to be part of the future next year. So I would love to stockpile picks, or I would love to get us a bonus. I would love to get, of course, a Simmons too. If we can try to throw darts at I mentioned it last time, Michael Porter Jr. would be great.
Yep.
I like Kobe White a lot too from the Bulls. He's a scorer also. There's a couple of those guys that I think are semi-realistic. Grant, I think, is good too, but to me, he's very similar to what Harrison Barnes already is. So it just, again, there's realistic options out there, but I guess picks would be one. Try to get some picks, especially for Barnes, maybe even for Buddy Well, one thing too, I know the Lakers still want Buddy, right? Would you guys do that trade, the THT and a first round pick for Buddy, or you guys are just, no, I don't want to help the Lakers at all?
I think they got to throw in a little bit more than that just to match salary-wise.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm mixed on that deal.
I'm mixed on it too.
Yeah. What about you, Cal?
It is going to take more than just those two in a pick because the salaries don't match, but I'm for it. I think that there aren't many deals I wouldn't do involving Buddy Hield, but Talen Horton-Tucker is somebody that could come in on this team, come off the bench, be a really, really good offensive player. He's very young. He has a lot of potential. I think he's been more consistent. He's more of a 3-level scorer as opposed to Buddy Hield. He's better handling the ball than Buddy Hield is. I would definitely take that trade.
Do you think that's the best deal they could get, though?
That's, again, really hard to say. I just don't know what's out there. Buddy Hield hasn't really been playing that well either, so who knows what his trade value is like. I've said it before. I still think that contending teams are going to be all in on him because that's the best fit for him. He's not a go-to guy. Yep. He's a great outside shooter who fits along well on a really well-constructed team that has good team defense, so he can be hid a little bit. He's not going to have to guard the other team's best player, and he doesn't have to do too much with the ball. So those are going to be the teams that are all in on him. I don't expect to see a struggling team say, well, let's take a chance and get Buddy Hield because that could really improve our team.
Yep. Yeah, for me, it's, I want to trade Buddy. I feel like chemistry-wise, just for the Kings, getting him and Bagley off the team is going to help. However, they're probably not the first guys I'm trading, right? Like,
okay,
if I got my sights set on a Sabonis or a Miles Turner or Ben Simmons, somebody like that, it's going to take more than Buddy Hield. Maybe they will want Buddy Hield. I don't know. But I'm not going to make these smaller moves until the big move is done first, right? Like, I'm going to try and do that blockbuster or whatever that big deal is first, and then I'm going to figure out the rest of the pieces. If I'm, it's the same way that I play 2K. And I do play 2K a lot. I like to rebuild teams on 2K. You could tell me it's unrealistic. I don't give a shit. I have fun. But for me, honestly, the two guys that I'm really, really hyped on right now, one of them is Miles Turner. And, that's the fact that I like him so much is because he's a great rim protector and because he's great at defense. But on top of that, I honestly love the fact that he's injured at this point. I do. You're a fan of Michael Porter Jr. I love Michael Porter Jr. It's unfortunate that he's injured, but I feel like if the Kings were to make a big splash and trade for one of these big guys, like let's say they traded for a Ben Simmons or one of these other guys, they're going to affect them through the rest of the season and potentially pull them out of that top 5 pick. But if I were to trade for a Miles Turner, a Michael Porter Jr., somebody that's not going to have a big impact on this season, I'm going to get my top 5 pick, and I'm going to get that guy for next season.
I think that's a fantastic plan, to be honest.
Calvin?
Yeah. No, I agree with that too. Like, it's taking a risk for a big name player, and also, like you said, it's making a move that you think is going to be better in the long run, but also helps us in the short term because we get draft picks. And it's a dominoes game. Like it's one deal that has to get done first.
This season's
very
over.
Meaningful deal.
This season's over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's done.
Yeah. But I still don't think that means you don't take a trade for somebody like an all-star level player just because you think this season is over. I think you take that trade because this team has good pieces on it that need other good pieces around it. And then you go from there with what your draft pick is.
Yep.
Or any other draft picks that you're able to acquire.
Thank you, Mike, for joining us. Have an awesome evening. We will see you next week. Key Kings is talking about Jonathan Isaac. I want to hear you guys' thoughts.
I'll let you
I
go
think
first,
he's
Alex.
solid too. He's big, he's wide, he's a shot blocker, he gets rebounds. That's essentially the things that we really need. Again, as much as I think Holmes is a fan favorite, he lacks with size, of course, and he gets bodied up by the pretty big centers. So yeah, I think it'd be great. I think he would complement Holmes, or we would Holmes and put him in there with maybe Damian Jones, or maybe it just depends who's on the roster next year. But I'm not mad at trading these guys. I'm not even mad at trading everybody not named Fox and Haliburton, or even just Haliburton, depending on, if I was a GM, I would like to know if Fox is even all in right now, because nobody knows what he's doing. Nobody knows if he's faking it, quote unquote, or if he's actually hurt. I'd like to know, do you want to be a King, bro, or do you want to go somewhere else? Because we can do this together. But if you don't, we're gonna get some assets for you because you're our quote unquote best player. So I would really like to know where he's at mentally, to be honest, before I even make any big moves. Because if he's not in, then fuck it, let's trade him. But
I agree.
It just really
100%.
depends, I guess.
100%.
Yeah, I agree too. Jonathan Isaac is a guy I'd love to have.
The only way you're going to turn a team around.
It's a risk, but again, the Kings need to take a risk.
The only reason or way you're going to turn a team around like this is to have guys that are determined, have guys that want to be here. And I think that's a good point, Alex, is that's a conversation you need to have with De'Aaron Fox. And you need to say, hey, we didn't plan on trading you. We don't want to trade you.
They haven't had that conversation with him already.
Yeah, they probably should have.
No, they absolutely have to have.
But
there's no way they haven't had.
If he's not that guy, then move on. You got to move on. I mean, that's just how it goes. All right, Alex, we're going to wrap up here, but I got one more important question for you. As you might know, and many of our listeners and watchers do know, Calvin and I will be in town next week. We will be attending both Minnesota Timberwolves games back-to-back on Tuesday and Wednesday, and we will be doing live post-game shows right after the game, right across the street at the Punch Bowl Social. This is a two-part question. First, are you going to be joining us at the game? And second, are you going to be joining us at Punch Bowl afterwards?
If I'm there, I'll go to both spots. I'll go wherever. I don't even care. Now that's if I'm going for sure. I'll know more by Saturday or Sunday to be in town or not.
Okay.
But if I do, I'll definitely post game, pre game, whatever. I don't care. I'm go hard or go home.
We got two
Awesome.
options,
We'd love
2
to see
days. You can go to either one. You don't have to go to both.
I'd be down to go to both. If I'm in town, I'm down to go to both. I don't care. It's just
Well, let us know if you'll be in town.
Yeah, we
yeah.
definitely.
I'll let you guys know by probably Saturday. By Saturday, I'll let you guys know.
Sounds good, man. We'd love to have you there.
Yep. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us again. Have a wonderful night. Kings win, man. That's awesome, right?
Kings win. Always a pleasure. You guys are killing it. Thanks again for your viewers. I do the Kings reactions pretty much every game except the weekends. I kind of just ignore stuff. But Kings reaction week, we'll be posting, I think by tomorrow, the UFC Vegas 47. Make sure you check that out. Jack Hermanson versus Sean Strickland. I cannot wait for that. And then next month we have Izzy versus Whitaker, UFC 271. The preview will be out next month, so check that out too. Sorry for the shameless plug. Just wanted to throw some of the content out there.
Get it.
No worries, man. We'll put a link down below in the description for everyone to check out your channel. Thank you so much for joining us again. Have a good evening.
You too. You guys are the best, man. Take it easy.
Thanks, man. Well, Calvin, another win for Sacramento. I'm going to say that again.
Another win.
Yeah, I'm going to say that again. Another win for Sacramento tonight. The Kings win 112-101 over the Brooklyn Nets.
Mm-hmm.
I say that just because it feels so good.
Yeah, it's hard to believe.
But I think I'm ready to wrap up Around the Crown and move on to the next week of Kings basketball, unless you have anything else to bring up.
Well, before we do that, real quickly, Ryan has a question for us here. He says, who do you think, Fox or DeMarcus Cousins?
Ooh. Ryan, Calvin and I have some very, very deep debates, especially when we've been drinking and we're like walking home from a bar at 2 or 3 in the morning for hours at a time because there's no Ubers available. Yes, I'm talking about a real time that happened, but we have these discussions all the time. And one of our biggest issues is comparing guys from different positions. Different eras too is very tough. But even in kind of the same era, just guys that play different positions, it's really, really hard to compare them. So, Calvin, I'm going to let you go to first here.
Okay, well, I actually have already thought about this answer because I read the question a while ago. And I'm going to go with DeMarcus Cousins here. And it's not that, like Barry said, they play different positions. They're very different players. Fox is he's a more skilled basketball player than DeMarcus Cousins is. But that's also because he's 6'2" and incredibly fast and quick and has good handling ability. DeMarcus Cousins is a very talented basketball player for a guy his size. But when DeMarcus was at his peak, a lot of people considered him to be the best, if not one of the 2 or 3 best centers in the NBA.
Yep.
De'Aaron Fox, so far at his peak, I feel like last season people were like, he's probably a top 10 point guard in the league.
Top 15,
but
maybe.
Nobody was really ready to make that assumption. They thought he was going to make an all-star team, certainly a ton of potential, all that stuff. DeMarcus had already proven it.
Yeah.
At 5 years into his career in Sacramento, he was one of the 2 or 3 best centers in the league. So I'll ride with DeMarcus Cousins.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that Calvin just said, but Ryan, I have a question for you. If DeMarcus Cousins' ankle was hurt, would he have missed the past, 6 games? That for me is the difference. yes, DeMarcus Cousins was considered one of the best centers in the NBA. I don't think anybody's considered De'Aaron Fox one of the best point guards in the NBA. I mean, you could talk about point guards and centers and how that all works out.
Point guards are harder to reach the top 2 or 3.
But for me, it comes down to ability, skill, and mental fortitude. Now, I know mental fortitude is not something you regularly talk about with a guy like DeMarcus Cousins, because we've seen him blow up on way too many occasions. And how many games would the Kings have won if he hadn't been ejected or had these issues or fouled out late in the game? But DeMarcus Cousins is never sitting with an ankle soreness for multiple games. I just got to throw that out there.
Probably not.
Yep. I mean, right there. Which two of you guys in the chat haven't hit the thumbs up? Don't be a freeloader. Hit the button and be a family member. Yeah. Gothen's speaking truth here, guys.
You got to subscribe to be a family member.
Yeah.
I'll just say that.
That's true. You got to hit the like.
Very much appreciate a like as well.
Likes are what we get paid in. And hit that subscribe button. And if you want to be a real supporter, make sure you go to royalrebounds.com and cop some fresh Kings gear we got, guys. You got to check it out. Don't knock it till you try it. All right, Calvin. Are we done talking about trades? I mean, we're going to be talking about this tomorrow.
We hit 50 likes. What does it mean? I
think James was supposed to take a shot or something. He's gone, though. Jimmy.
Well, he already took one.
James. I'll take another one. Yeah, the hats are pretty dope. Dre Lyon, dude. Good to see you, man. I haven't seen you in a while. You remember you took a photo with us at the Fan Fest?
Fan Fest, yeah.
It was nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Calvin and I will be in Sacramento again on the 8th and the 9th of February at the Timberwolves game. Make sure you come check us out. We will also be doing a post game at Punch Bowl Social right across the way. So good to see you in the chat. Hopefully we can see you in person again. I'm down to do a shot, Calvin. Let's do a shot.
All right, you pour him this time.
All right, I'll pour one here. Okay, well, I mean, if you want a cliff notes of the entire show, Kings suck, but they win tonight. They beat the Nets. De'Aaron Fox has quit on the team. Some trades need to happen. We have 8 days till the trade deadline.
The 7th? The Kings don't have a game on the 7th.
And potentially...
What are you talking about, Dylan?
Some people are quitting, so I don't really know. All right, this is you. You got one more shot glass for me?
Vinny, are you holding it hostage?
No, I got it.
Nope.
I'm hiding it
Barry's
over here.
holding it hostage.
All right, guys. We're going to take another quick break here. And when we come back, we're going to take a look at the Kings' next game and next week of basketball with Kings Crusade.